Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Bladtcast, and we have never done one of these shows before. Every year we do a preseason baseball preview, and then we do a before the playoffs preview. And there's a moment in October where I thought that maybe we would have been doing a really spectacular after the postseason episode of the Bladtcast. But in all honesty, we're doing sort of like a next best thing. There's a lot to talk about, including how terrible and just how incredibly wrong we were in our picks. And for the most part, we're not disappointed in that. As always, I'm Christian Blatt. With me is Salman himself, the one and the only David Weiss at D Weiss Comedy. You were D Weiss Picks for a moment. I don't know.
Yeah.
D Weiss
What's up,
Comedy.
America?
And then, of course, our number one Brooklyn boy is, of course, our friend David Brody. Brody, thank you for being here, and we will talk all things Brooklyn and other boroughs. We will cover three boroughs. We will not talk about Staten Island for even a moment, though, nor should we. And also, for our video audience, you're probably asking the same thing I am. Flobo, what happened to you?
So many horrible things.
Apparently, if you stop doing new content every day, it's like the portrait of Dorian Gray in the attic. It's sort of reverse. The actual aging process actually happens. Now, with us, of course, is number one Delawarean, Eric Connor, Count Eric Connor. And for those that don't know, I just finished doing a show with Brody and Eric, and I have to ask, Eric, have you taken any photos that you want to share with us?
He just threw himself out.
He kicked himself out of the room, and he took David with him.
I know. Wow. All right. So it's just you and me, Brody. So
I want you guys to fight.
Why would
no, let them fight.
Hilarious.
Am I Kong and you're Godzilla, or the other way around?
No. Brody was very critical. You would have loved it, Weiss. Brody was very critical of these pictures, these dirty pictures.
Pull them up. Pull up the kissing picture.
Dirty pictures. Hold on. These aren't Sal's D pics. All right. These were just screen grabs, and
yes,
sometimes they don't come out perfect. And then my life is going to be okay without you.
Without Brody. You don't need Brody anymore?
Oh, I need Brody.
Oh, thank you.
I wasn't talking about him.
No, that's not what you're doing. Oh, you're talking about me. No. So obviously it's not what we're here to talk about today, but because I did make the point to bring it up because it literally just happened. So this is an image that Eric shared of Aubrey.
Oh, of course you shared. In my defense, I was trying to share a picture of myself, and Aubrey Plaza got in the way.
Yeah, and so I had the audacity to point out that we could see you in this picture better than we.
Okay,
can see.
And I made fun of the picture of the witches kissing, which you couldn't see because it was so dark.
All right.
Anyway,
which is why you come to a baseball show to talk about my screen grabs.
Kissing witches.
Yeah, no. I mean, if you have a picture of witches kissing, David, Weiss wouldn't want to see it because it's not very clear. All right, so we do our baseball playoff preview show every year, and a lot of years, we're off. A lot of us picked the Phillies to win the World Series. One of the things, and our buddy author Devin Gordon wasn't able to be here today, but he's always on that show with us, who's written a tremendous Mets book called So Many Ways to Lose. And even none of us picked the Mets to beat the Milwaukee Brewers. And, we were almost right. We were a Pete Alonso long ball away from having been right about that. So, but there was one series I picked correctly in all of the playoffs, and that was for the Padres to beat the Braves. And, that was mostly motivated by hatred inside my heart that I just couldn't imagine. But we were so far off on the Mets, weren't we, Weiss?
We were very far off. I would, as far off as Melissa has been on Tampa Bay Rays, That's how far we were off on the Mets.
Wow. You know, look, our buddy Melissa Weinstein, who you went to NLCS Game 2 with,
Yes.
she over the years has made her playoff picks based on teams who had the most balks during the year, and I appreciate the amount of time she spends in that.
She had spreadsheets. I mean, she really researched it.
Oh yeah, no, she absolutely researched it, and there's something that I'll comment on a little bit later that I shared with her that's sort of relevant. But look, I think we were all impressed by the OMG Grimace Mets. We had come off. We had to wait a day to do our baseball preview special because of the makeup doubleheader with the Braves, which that first game in the doubleheader still one of the most incredible games, regular season game I've ever seen in my life. But the theatrics would only continue, Mr. Brody, as the New York Metropolitans stunned the crowd there in Milwaukee, where they brought in their I'm told great closer, but boy, this wasn't a great postseason for great closers. Give me your thoughts heading into the ninth inning of that third game in Milwaukee for the New York Mets.
I wasn't feeling good about it. I mean, the Mets had been known for comebacks and showing heart, but Pete hadn't done anything. Right? It wasn't like Pete was like he had the game-winning hit 3 or 4 times. I thought Lindor might do something. You know, when he got on base, I'm like, all right, he got on base. It's up to Pete. And I couldn't envision Pete doing that. And I was stunned by it, because even though I had seen the season and expected good things, I didn't expect good things I expected good things from Nimmo, from Iglesias, just not Pete. And I love Pete. He's, the polar bear. No polar schnauzer, but the polar bear.
Right, exactly.
So I was surprised. I was stunned like most people, I think.
Yeah, I think none of us stunned as much as the crowd there in Milwaukee at a place that was called Miller Park for a long time. I think it's like Home Family Field or some bullshit like that. But we do have that. I want to. Can you guys see it before I start to play it? I want to make sure it's up there. Is it not?
I got it.
Yeah, it's not dark or anything.
Jesus. All right. And this would be Mets radio voice Howie Rose on the call of this moment.
Here's the pitch. Swinging a fly ball to right field. Pretty well hit. Frelick back at the wall. He jumps. It's gone. He did it. He did it. Pete Alonso with the most memorable home run of his career. Pumps his fist as he rounds second. It's a 3-run homer. He's given the Mets a 3-2 lead. They all pour out of the dugout. Alonso on his way to home plate. They're waiting for him. Here.
So it's a tremendous moment, and the way that the playoffs ended only kind of reinforces the my God. Howard Rose started calling Mets games in 1987. Let that man call a championship. He's had some health issues over the years, and there's nothing that guy deserves more than anything else. And you can also look for a very early Bladtcast episode where I interviewed him about a book he had written. I'll have to look up what the number is, so I will promote that. But Mr. Weiss, your thoughts, sort of. We watched some innings of some of these games throughout the playoffs.
We did,
but I mean that really felt over, because they didn't match up well with the Brewers. There's a reason we picked the Brewers to beat the Metropolitans.
These Mets were channeling Casey Stengel. Amazing. Yeah. They showed no quit. They played hard-nosed baseball. And to me, this was the second best Mets playoff moment after Mookie Wilson and Bill Buckner. File that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree. I mean, it definitely kept them alive for a couple more weeks, which was really impressive. Eric Connor, as a Delawarean, you probably didn't have a lot of kids in the old neighborhood who were rooting for the Mets. But how did this playoff run start off for you, and what were some of your thoughts?
Yeah, no, growing up a Mets fan in Philly territory, it was a lonely, lonely childhood. That, and I double dipped with this and the New York Giants. I had other allegiances to Philly,
but you do like the Sixers, right?
I do, and the Flyers.
Yeah.
So I'm
there you go.
I'm pure mutt. But
to be fair, you only like the Flyers because of Gritty.
Well, Gritty came much later in the picture. I was born into the Flyers dynasty, which also promptly ended with my birth.
Oh,
so I think the last time they won the cup was 75, I believe. So I was 1, and they haven't won since. So my birth was basically their undoing. But with regards to the Mets, you mentioned the call on this being the greatest moment in Mets playoff history, maybe second only to Mookie Wilson. I would also say it's one of the best calls of a play. I love that you played that piece of it with Rose, because Gary Cohen's call of Big Sexy's home run is my other favorite call. And then we could get into the Piazza home run.
I've never heard that because I was too busy being at that game. So,
I was at that game. But you remember my story.
Ticket stub dropper.
I was at that game, but my son demanded he get a hamburger. And he was having a bit of a fit. And y'all are parents, so when that happens, like, all right, well, it's just the beginning of the game. That's okay. I'll wait in line. So my memory wasn't seeing it as it happened, was feeling everyone in the 7-line army going insane. And it felt almost like an earthquake.
Okay, that was from Bartolo rounding the bases, actually.
That was the earthquake,
Well, the good news was I got the burger, I got toppings, and by the time I came back, he just passed second. So it was a long, slow motion.
Brutal.
If anything is fitting for Bartolo, it's going to get a hamburger. So I think you're fine.
That's true.
My stomach made him proud.
He probably finished rounding the bases, and then he immediately stood in line behind you to get a hamburger as well. So look, it was such a huge surprise that happened. And on this show, on the Bladtcast, on our preseason preview, Devin makes the point that Pete Alonso really hadn't had a signature moment as a Met. And I made the point that his signature moment was home run derby. So really exhibition. And that moment changed it. As the playoffs go along, there are a few great moments that the Polar Bear has, which I think will prove financially lucrative for the Polar Bear in New York or somewhere else. Did you have another thought you wanted to share, Eric?
Well, it was just a quick little memory. So the Milwaukee game, I think, was, and I got a couple of fellow members of Tribes here. I believe it was first night of Rosh Hashanah, maybe, or second night of Rosh Hashanah. And we were hosting dinner at my house. But fortunately, one of my good friends in Burbank, also a Mets fan, he, myself, his daughter, and one of my sons, we were all inside watching the end of the game. And we're like, we'll be there soon. We'll be there soon. Everyone else is in the backyard. Apparently, you could hear the scream of the four of us down the block. And I was on a show with you the next day, Christian. I had like no voice, and I remember
actually, yeah.
And I think it was from that. And it was one of those moments. I think something we always look for, as obviously like addicts for this team, is there is something about it's community, it's identity, but it's also our childhood, right? I mean, it was watching this as kids. We were far younger men when they won in '86, and watching that moment. The miracle, we'll call it, of that 3-run homer. I mean, it was me and my 16-year-old were just beaming. We were off. We were so happy. And all night we were just beaming. And my wife, who has no love for the Mets, but she does love us, was kind of like, it was just great seeing you guys like that.
Well, it's interesting because that Howie Rose call that I played from the radio broadcast, that's how I heard that, because I had to drive my kids back from Northridge, where Mandarin class is. So I was listening to the game on Sirius. I was listening to the Mets broadcast. And as I'm pulling into the driveway, the Brewers go up by 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th. And so I explained to my wife, it's like, I got to go upstairs, listen to the rest of the game. And, you eat dinner with the kids. I got no patience for any of this bullshit.
I got business.
Yeah, I got business to do. So I was in the bedroom with the lights off, just listening to the radio. I'm like, all right. Cause I didn't want to hear the ESPN broadcast. I didn't need that. I was like, let me just hang in there. So I got to enjoy it in that way. And that was a special moment. There's a couple of, I was going to say, I probably like everybody on the Brewers except Rhys Hoskins. I could not have been happier that dick lost in the way that his team did. Making the little crying tears face literally on opening day at Jeff McNeil for his dirty slide. He still got Philly blood. So, just like Chase Utley,
Chase Utley,
once a dirt bag, always a dirt bag. But I'm not going to say that I didn't feel bad for him. And, look, you don't feel bad for other members of the teams that you beat and the fan base you can feel a little bad for. But there is this moment where if I want to share with you that he may not call baseball next year. So this game, that moment might have killed Bob Uecker.
Well, New York down. They did it. And the crew will have it end here tonight.
Really a crushing end to what was a fabulous season for the Milwaukee Brewers.
I'm telling you, that one had some sting on it. Milwaukee Brewers baseball has been brought.
I love that part in because he's still a goddamn pro. You know what I mean? He's like, well, I'm considering splitting my wrist, but Milwaukee Brewers, and I'm sure he said a bratwurst company. I don't know what the actual
his character in Major League and him they just morphed into one.
Actually,
he improv that.
Yeah.
Oh, the in Major League. Yeah.
I'd like to kill myself. Brought to you by Better Health. BetterHealth.com. Get your psychologist on the phone. Pick out your.
By the way,
therapist.
Kemi Egan, which she followed us from one show to another. We appreciate that. We love you for it, Kemi Egan. You mean to tell me none of you picked the White Sox? We talked a lot about the White Sox actually, and I used the White Sox as the explanation for how the playoffs had 3 teams from the AL Central because each of those teams got to pile up 10 extra wins against the White Sox. So they all were able to make the playoffs except the Twins, the team that everybody thought was going to make the playoffs. But anyway, so we get that tremendous moment. And then again, there's sort of this feel like, okay, well, they got to go up against the Phillies, the team that we all picked the Phillies to win the World Series. Weiss, you had the Yankees in the World Series. But did you have them?
I did.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I know. Surprisingly, probably because I think that I wasn't the only one who picked Astros Phillies World Series with the Phillies winning.
What did
not realize. I don't have it written down.
Oh,
but
so it must have been Phillies Yankees.
Yeah, and I think you took the Phillies there. But anyways, we all thought that's where they were going. So obviously the Mets head into that series. There's not really the expectation of, oh, well, they're going to win that series. It was like, well, they played them tough like a week ago. They won 3 out of 4, but on paper, the Phillies are the much better team. And, after they were eliminated, a bunch of guys on the Phillies said that we're the better team, but the Mets won. And as just, I'm losing bullshit. I know I'm not going to pull any of those clips, but there's several of them. It's like, yeah, we're the better team, but the Mets got hot at the right time, which that does happen.
Yeah,
but,
June.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, because they were the Phillies played like 500 ball the second half. Of
the Mets were the best team in baseball since June 1st. They didn't just get hot at the end.
Right. No, exactly. So, Weiss, you and I watched. So games 1 and 2 are on the weekend. We were at LA Comic-Con. I know that Eric and I were actually on a panel together. So I think I flipped my phone over towards you a couple times. It was nothing for a while. And, you figured like, oh, let's just try and win one of the games there in Philly before they get back to New York. And, those were very tense games. Even the game that we went to, Weiss, where Mania pitched. And it was like they had like a 7-2 lead, but I never felt good about it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So it was very stressful, but I think that series was a lot more about the Phillies' shortcomings. How did you feel, Mr. Connor, during the the way that series played out, considering that that's not your team that you root for, but it's your hometown team. So obviously you're very well versed in what's going on with the fighting Phils.
Yeah, and one of you guys already brought up Chase Utley. That idea when someone's on the Phils and they go elsewhere, they bring that stink with them. And listen, if the Mets are out, I always want to see like Philadelphia have a reason to celebrate and to riot and to eat horse poop, which is kind of their thing. Take that, LA. You didn't see anyone eating horse poop in LA after the Dodgers won.
No, they did set a city bus on. They did set a city bus on fire.
But in their defense, no, there's no defense of that. But
in their defense, there was no horse shit anywhere on the street, so they had to do something else.
You have to improvise. This idea of like, well, we were the better team. Well, guess what? You're right. You know what? In theory, sure, but here's the beauty of it. It doesn't happen in theory, right? It doesn't matter.
Well, a smarter person than I once said, they don't play the games on paper.
That is true. And I think also too, I'm glad we didn't have to play the Phillies like a month before or maybe 6 weeks before, because they cooled off. Like for a little while there, they seemed impenetrable this season. And then they didn't. And all of a sudden when we got past the Brewers, I didn't put any money on this. I don't think I out loud said, oh yeah, Mets are going to take him in 4. But the truth is, like, they seemed beatable. And the Mets went there. It's kind of remind me of like the Angels when they won the World Series, like just sort of they found ways to win games. There was something a little magical about that team. And maybe it was a rally monkey. I don't know. They had a rally monkey. We had Grimace, whatever it was. They just went in there like winners. They went in there the way like the Yankees used to kind of go into playoff games, where they just look like the guys that are going to win because they had that smell of them. And I thought the Mets just looked good and together. And I know we'll get to the Dodger series, but it was pretty exciting. And the truth is, it felt like we were playing with the house's money, even though this is the highest payroll in baseball. I think it still very much felt like, well, this was David, who already took down a Goliath, and now it's like, all right, let's see who else he can take down. And it was just fun. And if it ended in the Phillies, it was. And if it ended in the Philly series, I still would have felt like this was a beautiful season.
I would have felt good. Yeah, there's like getting around further than I thought they would. Brody, as the one of us who actually still lives in the New York area, talk a little bit about sort of the feeling, the vibes, if you will, after that surprise win against the Brewers, but then the onset of the mighty, dreaded Philadelphia Phillies.
Well, I mean, I'd been to a number of sports bars to watch some of the games, and it was electric. There were people they had hatred for whoever we were playing, and they were excited. And the only time that there was a problem at a sports bar was one of the games. It was the Giants Monday Night Football game, and the Mets were on, and more TVs had Giants games on than Mets games. So I left that bar immediately. This is a Giants bar. I'm not gonna. They're not promoting the Mets, so it even had the sound of the Giant game on over the Mets. Other than that, it was.
I remember when that game when I forget what game in the series that was, but the idea was, which one am I going to watch? I'm like, I don't care how big a Giants fan you are, a New York Football Giants fan in this season. Like, if you're also a Mets game, you don't even need to picture in a picture the Giants game to know.
It was game 4 and their season will be over by game 7. Like, who cares?
David, was that the bar from Naked Gun 2 that was just a disaster bar? It had like pictures of the Hindenburg and Michael Dukakis on the walls.
That's the one.
If it's a Giants bar this year, it might as well be.
I would like to comment quickly on something that Eric said about the Mets having the highest payroll. I would like to point out 2 things. Dodgers payroll, Mets payroll, right? So the Mets payroll is a little bit higher. The Mets were paying $100 million for people not on the roster.
Correct.
The Dodgers got Ohtani for free. Mm-hmm. And so the Dodgers had a $370 million payroll, and the Mets had a $270 million payroll. So in essence, what was on the field, the Dodgers had a much more expensive team than the Mets did, for the record.
Winning is priceless, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It really is.
Yeah, well,
look,
now
it's
according
not our money. It's fine. What were you going to say?
No,
Brody?
I'm
Sorry.
just saying in terms of value on the field, you can't say, well, the Mets, of course, they were competing. They had a higher payroll. They did not, as far as what was playing. And also, according to every sports site today on my phone, I'm getting alerts that the Dodgers are a top 3 contender to sign Soto. Something's wrong. You got to stop. You got to stop at Freeman and Betts and Ohtani and Yamamoto and the rest of the. When your number 8 hitter is Max Muncy or whatever, something's wrong. It's done. It's not right. Stop. But you can't sign Soto. Also, there's got to be a rule. Got to be.
Well, no, I mean, and we'll spend a few minutes at the end on a little bit of hot stove talk. But Mr. Weiss, before we close the book on the Philadelphia Phillies, you were at that game with me, and we're watching it at Barney's Beanery. Shout out in Burbank, and people were pouring in for the Dodgers Padres game a little bit later. But people, there was this one table of a couple of I guess Philly fans, because they were cheering when we weren't. But even in that game, there wasn't really that much. But how did you feel during that series? I know that this is kind of the Mets is sort of like really the only thing. It's like your only entertainment during these like 6 months during the year. Yeah. Well, I'm always like, have you checked out Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which has 2 seasons? You're like, nope. I'm like, nope. All right. I mean, you're just watching the Mets. Yep.
They lost me.
Yeah. All right.
What was I going to? Oh, aside from the Yankees losing ignominiously, beating the Phillies is almost the next best thing.
Yeah, it's up there. I mean,
do you have the clip? Do you have the clips of those Philly fans I sent you?
So I have one that I'm going to show, and then there's another one that you showed.
Fantastic. Did you guys see this?
Well, okay, Brody this is okay. The one that you're talking about is not the one I'm about to show. That doesn't mean I'm not going to show it.
Okay.
So the one that I have ready to show is a different one, and there was a lot of this sort of thing online, and on the show I do, Who Are These Broadcasters, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the Who Are These Podcasts YouTube channel. We featured some stuff from the actual post-game show on the regional sports network.
Nick Castellanos was a bit of a dick too.
Well, yeah, but they just the in-studio guys sound like Eric's buddies from the neighborhood talking about the Phils. 5 stinking hits. That's what we got. So I could play like an hour worth of stuff. Now I have just a couple of things. So I want to start with this one. This guy has a channel that he does, and this guy's the best. I actually love this guy, but so obviously they couldn't believe that it wasn't so much that the Phillies lost, but it was that they lost to the Mets.
No more Phillies baseball. It's probably the best for my mental health. I don't know how much longer I could even put up with it. There was a moment in time where the game was so brutal, even though the Phillies were winning 1-0, but it was so draining that I was wondering if they did manage to escape this one without their 12 ERA bullpen getting shelled. Oh, that is a joke. That is fucking ridiculous.
What I love about that clip is that it starts off slow and then he goes full Sam Kinison.
Beautiful.
So I legitimately love that guy, though.
Well, his clips before that, leading up to that game, all week were so anti-Mets and we suck and we're a punk-ass city. And no way the Phils lose to these idiots.
Well, and then there was one that I showed that was from before that, where he talks about just sort of the idea of like, if you don't think that the Phillies are going to roll the Mets in this series, then obviously you don't have the appropriate respect. And again, I'm not going to show 3 clips from that guy, but I could, is my point.
Yeah.
And look, and I made it fully well known. I'm like, look, there's going to come a time, who knows how many weeks at that point, where it'll be Mets fans reacting badly, but we were kind of mostly of the, but we had grimace and we just had fun. We had more fun than we had. It's not the same as that crowd. And actually, so there's the but how much did you guys take into this? Like, again, I do a whole show where I was sharing some of this. So Brody, you're familiar with the guy that I showed. His name is Broads, by the way. I wonder if he's related to you.
No.
Broads Media. I
Broads
noticed
Media.
that. I was excited about like Brody.
Yeah. Give me some of that money. I watched a lot of that. There's 3 or 4. There's 2 guys that do a Philly podcast that I watched that was the same way. We're going to destroy the Mets. They're punks. Grimace is stupid. And then watching the video after they lost with the guys going, yeah, the Phillies always suck. The Mets didn't win this. The Phillies lost it. I mean, watching them all backtrack. The guy with did you see the face painted mohawk guy?
I love that guy, by the way. Yeah. So that guy they showed at a couple of the games, a couple of the NLDS games, and then
he was in every game.
And then there's like him waiting for like an Uber or something, or after one of the games, and he's still got the mohawk.
Yeah, well, he did a bunch of videos slamming the Mets, and then he did a really nice, actually a very well thought out apology video where he said the Mets are the better team. Like he ate pie, but humble pie, but he was actually very professional about it. So of all the Phillies people, he was the classiest.
Right. Well, this is the one that Weiss wanted me to show.
So there's a couple low points in my life. My dog passing away and them getting a grand slam. The grand slam took the cake.
Courtney O'Neill was not a fan of that outcome.
I feel like I might either check into AA, therapy, or an institute of some sort because this is crap. It's full of crap.
And she wasn't the only one. One woman told us she literally drove all the way up the East Coast just to see the Phillies lose.
I had back pain from the hurricane maybe 6 or 7 hours ago. I drove 21 hours up here, and I came here. My first stop, I had no sleep.
That girl's name is Montana Chambers. With a name like that, I think I know what industry she's in.
Yeah, mattress actress.
Overalls with Phillies.
Look at these guys.
We have such great expectations, and now
Christy.
hit the 5th stage of grief. It's called acceptance.
I'm letting the clip play. We're going to go back to the girl
the
from
names.
For the next 5 years,
Wait.
probably.
But Courtney
This is
hasn't
back to
reached
Courtney
that
from the beginning.
acceptance phase just yet.
And I want everyone gone. I want the bartenders gone. I want Xfinity gone. I want my best friend gone. I want them all gone. This is bull crap.
She wants her best friend gone and the cable company. She literally wants everyone gone.
She just needs a water ice. That's all she needs. And a bagel.
She does need a water ice. So look,
And all the Chickies and Pete's crab fries are not going to make her feel better.
yeah,
That's right.
we did have look, that was a lot of fun, and as that series went along, and the fact that the Mets won it, I'm like, okay, well now they have to go up against the Dodgers, and this could end any minute, but I was definitely happily enjoying that because Phillies fans, like Yankee fans, and Phillies fans didn't used to be like this. The time that they ripped the playoffs from the Mets, 7 up with 17 to go, and there's not really enough talking about the allegations that they were stealing signs during that time, but that's all right. Whatever happens, that's not the year they won the World Series anyway. But it was like kind of once that era happened, they were like, oh, we're actually like really good. And, they won the World Series in 2008, and then they lost to the Yankees in 2009. So they became a very good team. And so then they got to the point of like, oh, well, we're a great team, and they really handle themselves like Yankee fans. So when they do lose, you're like, it's kind of funny. I have a lot of family in South Jersey, by the way, and they're all Phillies fans. And
I think I dated one of those girls my sophomore year at Penn.
No, those were not girls.
I mean, their grandmother.
Those were not girls in the overalls that you saw there.
Actually, and I think Del Vecchio, I might have known him.
Yeah. So then
I usually made them that angry.
And look, I had the feeling that the Padres were much better than the Dodgers. We talked about that on our preseason preview episode. I went to game 2 of the NLDS. I last minute got an invite to that. And that's the game where Dodgers fans are throwing baseballs on the field. And the the Padres just massacred them. I don't know what the score was, but it might as well have been like 11-2, whatever it is. And the Padres are like chirping back at the fans, and they're mouthing off to everybody. And I'm looking at Fernando Tatis Jr. His batting average in the playoffs, I remember it in that game for the entire play. He'd been batting .667. I'm like, you don't need to mouth off to the fans. Your bat is doing it. And Manny Machado is such a punk ass little bitch. He drags all those guys down. Profar's probably a good guy without him on his team. And I said this probably to each of you, that to me, Fernando Tatis Jr. shouldn't be turning to Manny Machado for inspiration. He should be turning to the man with the same name as him, who hit 2 grand slams in the same inning from opposite sides of the plate. I believe many of those runs charged to Chan-Ho Park. So you have Fernando Tatis is your dad. He's probably somebody to take inspiration of. So I walked out of that game. I'm like, the Dodgers don't have a chance. And I felt like the Mets would have matched up better with the Dodgers because, again, on paper, Dodgers don't have starting pitching. Dodgers don't have as good a bullpen. But the Dodgers sure were able to silence those Padres bats as the NLDS went along. And,
Christian?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on with your thought, and I'll jump in.
No, I was just going to say, and, they had an elimination game where the Dodgers had a bullpen game. I'm like, well, you can't possibly win that. And the Dodgers had 3 bullpen games in the playoffs, and they won 2 of them. I went to the one they lost. Weiss and I were there. Shout out to us. What were you going to say, Brody?
When you were at that game, what were the Dodger fans throwing at the Padres? Was it batteries or what was it?
No. You're thinking of Red Sox fans in 1999.
Yeah, no. What were they doing?
They had baseballs. It was a whole thing. Yeah.
Right. I just remember what they threw. So when you were at that game and the Dodger, and we all watched the clips that night and the next day.
Yeah, sure.
And the Dodger fans are throwing baseballs at the Padres. Did you ever think that those fans wouldn't be the worst fans in the postseason this year?
No, you know what, Brody? I didn't think that. I figured like, oh, nothing gets worse than this. But you're right. That's not even close. So, yeah. And I don't want to go through with a fine-tooth comb. That NLCS was definitely winnable for the Mets. Using Senga in that spot, he never should have been on the postseason roster. Neither should have Jeff McNeil. I don't think those were smart moves. But honestly, I don't know that it ends any differently without those 2 moves. I don't think those moves are the actual problem. I just think that it's unfortunate that the game starts and you're already down. But I got to go to a fun game. My buddy John, who was best man at my wedding, he was at game 5 of the NLCS in New York. So he got to go to a good game. Hey, Eric, did you get to go to any fun games in the NLCS?
It depends how you define fun.
Sure. Yeah.
My son, my 16-year-old who loves the Dodgers, he had fun. My brother-in-law who seemed to jump on the Dodgers bandwagon, he had fun. His kids had fun. My niece, my very adorable 8-year-old niece who made fun of me, she had fun.
Oh,
I didn't have so much fun. I'm glad I got to go to game 6. I sent you a photo, Christian.
I gotta get it.
It's all good. Yeah. But I'm glad I was there. It's definitely a moment my son's going to remember for a while. He will weaponize it against me for a longer time than he'll remember it. He'll just remember if he brings it up, I'll get angry again. As will my dogs.
Yeah. Well, as we often point out, the Baja men are clearly at your house.
Yeah, right. Oftentimes, all the time. But, I think also, too, you're saying it was a winnable series. They had they had left so many guys on base early in that game. And, there was a couple moments where like a legit swing of the bat, not even a home run, just a legit swing would have changed the formula a little bit. And it didn't. And it didn't happen. And you could feel as around halfway through the game, like it feels like the Mets just don't have it right now. So,
yeah.
And then that was me at the game's end.
keeping JD Martinez in the lineup instead of Jesse Winker. Yeah. Look, I will think back on a lot of that stuff. I mean, I still don't have to think about the 2006 Mets for more than a second without thinking about if only Dwayne Sanchez hadn't been in a car accident. Yeah. So
100%.
Yeah. If El Duque or Pedro had been, 5 years younger and been able to pitch in that series. But anyway, so it was fun. And I think the way that the playoffs end, which is what we're going to move on to in a moment, the Dodgers just really had an edge. They were the best team in baseball for a reason. And they had it seemingly let their foot off the gas a little bit in September, but nowhere near as much as the Phillies because they were able to turn it back on. And, I think it was impressive. And I think it's just infuriating, though, when it's not like you're not getting beat by Ohtani and Mookie Betts, when you're getting beat by Tommy Edman and Max Muncy.
Kiki Hernandez.
Yeah, right, exactly. Which, but so what are your thoughts, Brody? You didn't go to any of the games at Citi Field in that series, right?
No, it's the first postseason games I haven't been to since the 2000 World Series, which I went to. It was weird for me not going. Lots of reasons why I didn't go, but I didn't go.
But as you're at home watching those first two games, you're probably like, I'm glad I'm not there right now.
Yeah. Well, game 3, I'm like, well, let's see them win a game before I go. And then a bunch of friends were like, game 4, we're all going to a bar. We're going to watch the game. I'm like, oh, great. Game 4 will be great.
Yeah.
Game 4 wasn't great. Game 4 wasn't great. Not great. So I enjoyed it. I watched every pitch. It was fun. It was fun watching the game, hating the Dodgers payroll and the team they put together. And then thinking about next year and the young talent that they have coming up and the money coming off the books and who they're going to sign. Like this off season is going to be awesome. So I kind of watched the Dodgers as gravy. Like somebody tweeted at me and said they were a Phillies fan. They're like, "Oh, your Mets choked." I'm like, "No, my Mets overachieved. Anything after game 162 was bonus for us."
Exactly the word I was going to use. They overachieved. Like
they got choked out. Maybe the
Mets season was over in May. Around the throat. In May, we're like, they were asking Cohen, "Is he going to sell at the deadline?" So the fact that they made the playoffs, I'm like, fantastic. The Phillies were supposed to win, and they El Choco'd. So you're a Phillies fan, don't talk, because we were just happy to be there. So look, I was depressed in 2006. I was at the game 7, and Endy made the catch, and then they didn't win. And I was there at the last game of 2007, the last game of 2008 when they lost in the last game at Shea Stadium. I was at the wild card game. I was at the Royals beating the Mets in Game 5 World Series. I mean, I've seen a lot of shit.
I was there too. I went to Games 4 and 5 of the World Series. The Mets won Game 3 in 2015. I did not go to that one. I went to 4 and 5.
Game 7. I'm sorry, Brad. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. So I've seen a lot of shit. So watching the playoffs against the Dodgers, I wasn't watching it like they've got to win. This to be horrible. I'm like, this has been a great year. This has been one of the best years. It was like the '84 Mets. It was like whatever we get is great. So loved it. I didn't have that dread watching the games. Like I can't believe they're not going to win this and they're gonna collapse again, because they didn't. They did as much as they could.
Brody, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. I was just bringing up 2006 Game 7. I managed to be at that one too, and I remember the air coming out of that stadium with Molina's home run.
With Aaron Heilman.
Yes. Aaron Heilman. Right. And again, Heilman, not Sanchez. And then the walk back to the subway. That was. I felt like the longest hour where just everyone was depressed. No one was saying anything. And
it's terrible.
And it was just because it felt like it was so close. And, even was it Sean Green later apparently went into therapy. He was so shook by what happened during those playoffs. That was brutal. And this was not. Even that Game 6, even that photo. I mean, it might have been a little bit of showmanship for my selfie, but I was just a little. It was such a joy seeing the Mets this season. There are so many fun memories, so many stories, and so in essence, like, yeah, the house is money we got to play with for another couple of weeks, and really that the Alonso home run is that thing. Like, I think my son will be telling his kids. My other son couldn't give a shit about the Mets, but my older son will definitely bring that up as one of those great baseball moments, even though we weren't physically there. Just watching it together and screaming like fools at it together was as good as anything the Mets have given me in a long time.
Yeah, and it is one of those memories, sort of. It's like the Andy Chavez play. It's like, oh, wow, this is a really great moment that you have to take into consideration the fact that it ended up, ended up not winning the series. Weiss, we're all talking a little bit, sort of like, oh, gee, it was fun. And one thing I want to shout out is sort of the revelation that Mark Vientos was the third baseman in the playoffs, because, I was just like, I even texted Weiss. I'm like, I hated him batting second. And then I was like, okay, I guess him batting second isn't a terrible idea. And he had a tremendous playoff. So to Brody's point about sort of the future, but Weiss, you did not take this well, did you? You had a couple of rough days after this series ended.
I had a couple of rough days. Yeah, it really was a gut punch for me. I can't. It hurts to talk about it, even though they had a tremendous year. They played the way I wanted them to play. They did the things that we want them to do. And, if there's a way to lose well and be good sports and hold your head up and not be punk ass bitches, this was that team.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I agree with that.
Shakespeare.
And it turned into one of those things that very rarely are you able to do. You lose a playoff series and then you find yourself immediately rooting for the team that just beat your team. But it's exactly what we had to do, because the Dodgers ended up facing the New York Yankees in the Fall Classic, which is the matchup that Fox wanted more than anything. Their commercials for the playoffs only had Dodgers and Yankees at one point. That was really all they wanted to have in there. But Weiss, you weren't even able to bring yourself to watch the World Series at first. I think eventually
the first three games I was consumed with hate, Christian, for both teams and for the Mets loss. And through meditation and a lot of drugs, I came through. I came out of it, and I welcomed baseball back into my life.
This episode sponsored by heroin. Heroin.
That's right.
Heroin. It's not just for dinner anymore. Yeah, it's what's for dinner. It's what's for dinner. And so game one of the World Series was a week ago tonight, last Friday, and there was an event at my kid's school, the Halloween event, the Boo Bash, if you will. And I actually took a couple of pictures. There were a few tables where parents in their Dodger jerseys had their kids' iPads like flipped open and they were watching the game on it. I thought it was kind of funny. So I would occasionally look by and see what was happening. And across the street from the kids' school, a friend of Felix's older brother is part of this group. They put on a puppet show. So I'm watching this puppet show, but I have my phone because I'm watching, the Yankees had gone up 3-2. And by the way, before I paint that picture, Larry, who is always a part of our baseball episodes, he's always there in the chat, popping in to say congrats to the jerk Mets on beating the Phillies, who came out and laid a giant egg. I blame you guys for picking them to win unanimously. Yeah, you would think that was like we were going for like some like elaborate reverse jinx. No, I really thought they were the best team. And he's still salty about it. At least the Yankees lost in humiliating fashion. And we could all enjoy that. There's really, I feel like only the Bronx and Colin Cowherd wanted the Yankees to win the World Series. And Chris Tuthill, I couldn't resist popping by. It was a bit of an exciting, heartbreaking night of baseball, or as we call it, silly boys rounders. Yes, that's how they see things in other parts of the world. So, and I mean that game one, I think, is really the story, and we'll talk about the way it ended in a moment. But even in that game, you could kind of see like, oh yeah, this Yankee team, it's not that great. They lost the game to each of the Guardians and the Royals. But my hot take preseason prediction for the World Series was the Yankees haven't started a playoff series on the road in forever. That team is built to hit rinky-dink home runs in their little league ballpark, and they're not going to get to start that way. And as we see from the games that they did play in the Bronx, it was a lot easier, including the grand slam that would have been caught in 29 ballparks, except for the one that they play in. So, but what did you guys think? And again, we'll talk specifically about the way game one of the World Series ended, but what did you guys think sort of watching the way that the Dodgers, who we had just spent a lot of time watching, how they measured up with the Yankees, who, Brody, maybe being in New York, you're a little bit more clued into the Yankees than those of us who hate them from afar in Los Angeles. But what was your thoughts as the World Series started?
Well, I didn't think the Yankees had a shot in hell based on the way they've been playing for the last couple of months. I mean, if you look at their record, they had a great May. They were 21-7 in May. Right. And then the rest of the season, they were kind of average. You know, they didn't end up strong. The rotation is crap. The bullpen is up and down, and they really only have 3 hitters on the team, maybe that are consistent.
Yeah.
And look what happened when Judge wasn't one of them. When Judge didn't hit, you're left with Juan Soto, and you're hoping for the best out of Verdugo and what's the shortstop's name? Lupe Fiasco. What's his name? Volpe, right. Yeah. So Rizzo is like on his last toe.
You just channeled my grandfather.
Yeah, all right, it's fine. I knew it had a P in it. Lupe, Volpe, and it was close.
What's the button with the thing with the potty name?
But the Hupe, Dua Lipa, who's the shortstop?
What you sounded like just now, Brody, was like Eric Connor saying IG, which stands for Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, it's TikTok. There's no C in the tick or the talk, just so you know.
That's true. Yeah. There's always a lot of
so I didn't expect much. I thought if the Mets got to the World Series, they would have thoroughly handled the Yankees.
Oh, I still feel that way.
Yeah, so based on the way the Mets won 2 games from the Dodgers, I thought there's no way the Yankees are winning 2 games from the Dodgers because they don't have it. They don't have the team. Yeah.
But again, that first game is the game that's the one that actually they let get away before the one that they really let get away. But, that's sort of you're basically building sort of the narrative of what the series is. And as we talk about the way that that game one ended, we do need to take a step into the Wayback Machine for a moment. And a voice that Mr. Weiss usually prefers not to hear, but it brings us to game one of the 1988 World Series. And our visual audience will see that Dennis Eckersley had not allowed a home run since August 24th.
% to first base. So the Dodgers trying to catch lightning right now.
And Kurt Gibson, as we said earlier, on 2 bad knees, comes to the plate.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone.
And I know Weiss doesn't love Vin Scully, but
at least he knew enough to shut up.
In the 86 and 88 World Series, he has 2 phenomenal moments where he just lets the moment speak for itself. The other one being the ball through Buckner's leg. So there's that moment. And I think that Freddie Freeman didn't appreciate the comparison because he's like, wow, I mean, I was in the whole game. Gibson, comes in from the training room. Like he wasn't even there for when they introduced the players because he couldn't stand up. So he's like getting treatment.
Yeah. Which is why Gibson's moment is 1,000 times better than Freeman's.
Okay. Now I agree. It is definitely better. However, it's hard to disagree with the fact. And look, for those who are maybe somehow watching and don't know this, Freddie Freeman was an Atlanta Brave, would still have been an Atlanta Brave if they weren't so goddamn cheap and chase him away to the Dodgers. And they should be ashamed of themselves. He wanted to stay on that team. And then he's like, all right, I guess I'm going somewhere else and I'll help that team win World Series as well. There's a lot of, there's a lot of feelings for Mets fans when you have the guy who always kills you, like Chipper Jones. I don't have any good feelings for Chipper Jones. The more you hear about Freddie Freeman, you're like, God damn it sounds like he's a really nice guy. He had some health scare for his child, and he's just like, this only happens because my dad always throws batting practice. I'm like, all right, he seems like a good guy. I don't hate him, but he's still a guy who, even as a Dodger, would still come up with a big hit against the Mets. Not in a playoff game. They actually did pretty well with him.
He's a winner.
However, watching the puppet show across the street from my kid's school to bring you back. So I don't hear this at the time, but I see the fact that Aaron Boone walks Mookie Betts to get to Freeman.
To load the bases for Freeman.
Load the bases. Okay, that's a strategy. But then he brings in Nestor Cortez, as Susan Waldman would say.
Nestor Fiasco.
Who hadn't pitched in 5 weeks. And this is the moment that we ended up getting as a result of the managerial decisions by Aaron Boone.
Reality for Freddie Freeman right here. Cortez delivers. Freeman hits the ball to right field.
She is gone. I didn't realize he said the same thing.
Oh, yeah, he says the same thing. Now, I love that he says she is gone. I don't love that he says Gibby meet Freddie. I don't like that at all, but I love that he says she is gone.
I'm okay with that. I mean, it's an obvious left-handed Dodger Game 1 comparison. Yeah. I mean, and he's injured. It's just, hitting a home run when you can't walk off arguably the greatest relief pitcher of his time in the greatest season of his time, who hadn't given up a home run. That's epic.
What Freeman did was
pretty good.
Off Dennis Eckersley is far more impressive and I would say shocking. But because we talk about a lot of things as they relate to the Yankees, and we were talking about this Dodger moment, I do want to share that same moment again, but I'm going to say something that surprises me. The shockingly good call that John Sterling had on this from Yankees radio.
Oh, what a fabulous game. Well, bases loaded, 2 outs. Come down to this. Freddie Freeman, the hitter, lefty to lefty with 2 outs pitch. A high drive to right. Soto back on the track, and she is gone. A grand slam to win the game for LA.
So he also says she is gone. So even he has the presence of mind, and you can barely hear it, but I think Susan Waldman loses her lunch. She's very nervous leading up to this at bat. Yeah, I did go back and listen to the whole thing in the Yankees broadcast, but I'm sharing this image of Aaron Boone. This is the moment where he realizes, like, oh, I'm going to get fired, aren't I? God damn it. I did that. And, so, I mean, what a tremendous moment. And yes, I agree with Brody 100%. Gibson's home run is far more impressive, but that doesn't take away from what is a great moment in a game that the Yankees had basically won. And they were going to go up. They would have stolen a game from the Dodgers and gone from there. I think that they would have gone to New York having won a game. And there's a good old Nestor Cortez. And look, I don't necessarily always want to make these Bladtcast shows, particularly. I don't necessarily want them to be political, but I do have something that I want to get to as it relates to Nestor Cortez in a moment. But I want to let each of you kind of talk about that moment. Were you watching Eric as Freddie Freeman hits that home run, or what was going on with you at that moment?
No, I was at an event. It was like a Halloween party at the Chamber of Commerce. So they did not have the game on.
Right.
There was, it was very focused on the Halloween party element. Now, mind you, a few days later, I'm at a fundraiser for a local politician, and they had they had game 5 on because I think people would have revolted if they didn't.
Yeah,
but game 1 they did not have on. But you definitely saw a lot of people, kind of looking down. And the guy next to me actually had the game streaming, so I was definitely watching over his shoulder. And I had a game day on my phone, and I noticed a grand slam before he did. And and I turned and I was like, I think you're about to be happy. And so it was kind of just that moment, and then they announced it to the party, and the party went insane. So even though I didn't get to watch it, so to speak, live, it was like bits and pieces of it, and still incredible. I mean, just such an exciting moment. But even looking at it as I did, glimpses of someone's stream, game day, I was looking at and questioning so many things. Like, why did they walk? That's like Freeman's going to come up with a massive chip on his shoulder. And similar to the Hulk, you just don't want to make him angry. And
yeah, I did use that meme from the Michael Jordan documentary. And I took that personally because he literally took that personally. Again, this is something that I alluded to. It made me remember this, which I don't necessarily want to scare people with an image of the former president, but I do need to share as we talk Nestor Cortez.
Hialeah kid, Nestor Cortez. Where is Nestor? He's a great pitcher. Got that fastball.
He sure does. He sure does. Does have that
Cortez.
It's amazing how much he knows about everything. The way he delves into it. He just with that uniform and that hat and that glove. Tears in his eyes. Big guy, strong guy.
And we get into just one second. I'm sorry, but when Taylor Swift came out against a certain former president.
Sure.
He's like, you know who I prefer? Brittany Mahomes. That's who I'm a fan of. It's like, I'm sorry, does Brittany Mahomes have an album?
Well, he also called her,
he also called her
Mrs. Mahomes because he didn't know her first name. He had to think about it, and he's like, Mrs. Mahomes. But anyway,
the blonde Mahomes.
And Weiss, for you, I wasn't sure that you were actually watching the World Series, but then I did see a comment from you about how I think what you texted me was that the idea that Boone just got himself fired. Maybe that's what you texted me. I don't remember, but talk to me about that for you. For you, Weiss.
Well, again, as a lifelong Met fan, my hate for the Yankees is strong and true. And to see them get humiliated time and time again is like a warm bath that I can sink myself into.
It really is. I agree.
Nestor salts.
You just based yourself in it, you know.
It's a buttermilk bath of hate.
Best
is that the sound of you bathing?
In a plane?
Yeah. Are you at the airport? I didn't realize.
Well, I don't know. You were today apparently I am. I don't know.
No, the house was cheap. I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, that's just sort of a tremendous, spirit crushing moment as it turned out to be the case. And the Yankees are not particularly strong in game 2 of this World Series. It felt like there was definitely that hangover, but then also there's been a lot of attention paid to what the Dodgers pre-World Series meeting with their scouting department was like. Here's what you need to know about the Yankees. They don't play in position. You can always take an extra base. You have to hustle, because if you force them to play defense, they will make a mistake.
And they did.
As we get to game 5, which we're not to yet, we absolutely got to see that as it played out. And I think it was like, yeah, look, I mean, the Dodgers were just a behemoth as it were. There was really no stopping them, even though as the playoffs started, it looked like the Padres were going to have no problem with them. But this matchup for them, for the Yankees, having to start a series on the road and play the Dodgers. And then also it's important to point out that Aaron Judge just nothing. And we're only talking about his bat right now. Just nothing. He
looked like Pete. Didn't he look like Pete swinging at every outside low curveball?
Yep.
And he kept stepping out of the bucket, stepping into the bucket towards left field.
He didn't have.
I mean, how does a hitting coach not look at that and say, step towards right center?
Yeah.
Just go to right field. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Every pitch he was trying to pull, and they're going to keep throwing him curveballs until he stops swinging at him.
Yes.
Even if you have to look at strike 3, stop swinging at the curveballs.
Preach, Brooklyn.
Yes, thank you.
So
I have no tolerance for that.
Again, Brody, you're the one of us back on the East Coast. The three of us, we're sort of, caught up in the warm October sunshine of Los Angeles and the good feelings after that Grand Slam and then winning the second game. How did obnoxious prick Yankee fans feel after losing the first 2 games? They were like, it's fine because we're just going to win the next 4. Because remember how we did it in 1996 with one of the best single rosters ever composed? So obviously we can do it again, I think was their thinking. Was that the feeling from Yankee fans, Brody?
They were very cocky. They were very confident in their hatred for those fucking Dodgers and their West Coast, tofu eating bastards. They were cocky. I will say that after they lost the 3rd game, somebody who looks just like me pointed out that in the history of postseason baseball, only one team has ever blown a 3-0 lead.
Yeah.
So that they didn't appreciate that either for some reason.
They didn't appreciate that. Yeah.
I was just giving you knowledge.
You did provide a lot of helpful facts. Before the Yankees had even won a game, you pointed out what you mentioned here. And the Mets beat them twice.
Yes, and the fact that the guy who was instrumental in the comeback of beating the team with the 3-game lead is now managing the Dodgers was all that much sweeter. Mr. Stolen Base himself, Dave Roberts.
Right.
And the guy doing the pregame show is Big Papi. So I was fine with all of that. Yeah, it all seemed good to me.
There were some really fun interactions with Big Papi in the Bronx, which I may or may not share some of those, but you would definitely be able to see them Tuesday on Who Are These Broadcasters, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the Who Are These Podcast YouTube channel. We will have some fun Big Papi clips. So the Yankees do manage to win a game, but I think it's important that the story isn't that from the game. The story are these 2 mooks who spent combined probably $32, $33, maybe even $5,000. So I was going to say 3,300, but I'm like, it might have been more like $5,000. So you have these 2 guys who are sitting there on the wall, and Mookie Betts, squares up for a fly ball. This is in Game 4 of the World Series. It is the bottom of the 1st.
Fly to right by Torres. Betts in the corner. Does he have room? Fights with the fan. And they're going to say that it's an out and fan interference. So an out, 1 gone in this first. It's the 2nd time that Gleyber Torres has hit a ball that has ended up in fan interference in this series. He had the home run.
Here's a little replay. You really get to see how this
Betts has that ball in his
fat
glove,
meatball right here just reaches into his glove.
And the other guy grabs his arm.
Oh, yeah. Dude, they could have hurt him. I mean, it sounds silly because, it's just pulling. I mean, imagine, if he tweaked his wrist on that.
Or worse.
Or worse. Right. Broke a finger.
That's a lawsuit of a lot of money.
I had a back and forth with a friend on Twitter who is actually a Phillies fan, so no wonder he didn't feel like this kind of fan interaction was particularly egregious. But I said,
the fans in Philly wouldn't do that, though.
No, of course not. But this point here is that he grabs his hand, And what if he had sprained his finger? And then I said to my Philly fan friend, okay, let me put it a different perspective. What if this was Bryce Harper and he sprained his finger? Because you don't care if Mookie Betts sprains his finger. And these guys were originally, they were telling people because they did a media tour. Barstool was happy to talk to him. A few other places did interview them. They believed that they were going to come back for Game 5, but then there was just way too much pressure on MLB. So they had their tickets refunded, which, considering the way Game 5 went, they should be so happy that they got that money back and that they didn't sit here. But these guys talked about, like, we're here to defend our wall. No, you're here to watch a game, you know? And
by the way, look at that picture, right?
Yeah.
A bunch of people said, what are the odds that Mookie Betts would go into the crowd in the exact spot where those two idiots were sitting?
Yeah.
That whole row, including the blonde girl, every one of them would have done that.
Yeah.
Every one of them would have grabbed him. It's not like only the. And did you see who he's friends with, who he went to college with?
Gronkowski.
Rob
Gronkowski's like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah.
He was crazy.
I was always
He was on the hockey team.
Yeah. And look, I had the firm belief that these guys should be banned from not just Yankee games, not just baseball games. They should not be allowed to attend a live sporting event.
Never.
But,
it was assault.
Not even highlight. Don't even let them there. I mean,
that's fair. Yeah. Maybe
You're banning him from highlight.
Maybe they can take in Quidditch. That might be it. That might be the one that they could take in. But I mean, and this is just beyond crazy, you know, that.
And I don't think Phillies fans would do that. I'm sorry. I got to defend my fellow.
No, they 100% would do that. Yeah.
Oh, please. Eagles fans, Phillies, those people. Are you kidding? They would have ripped his arm off.
See, that's the thing. I don't think they would have interfered with gameplay. I think, they might boo Santa Claus. They might cheer someone's getting paralyzed. But I don't think they would get in the way of an actual play.
Phillies fans would have ripped his hand off and put whiz on it and made a sandwich.
With or without onion?
So, without.
Chris Tuttle says, shame for that fan, banned for life and embarrassed, but totally deserved of his punishment.
He's not banned
and
for
this
life
is the
yet.
second time. No, I know, but not yet. This is the second time we've had this. I just got my glasses on and I realized this is David Brody and not Jim Norton. I've been thinking, when do we get to the hookers? And specifically the kind of hookers that he used to enjoy.
3 o'clock hour.
It's Brody with a Y, not an IE. And I have gotten the Norton treatment twice this week now.
Yeah,
where people think I'm Norton. And I am not. I'm married to a woman, so a biological woman. Nothing against Jim's wife.
No shade to Nikki Norton. She's
wonderful.
Yeah, but I know what you're
Norton,
saying.
my friend.
So this happens, and then look, the Yankees. This game just gets out of control. This is actually not a bullpen game, right? Jack Flaherty started this game.
Game 1. Yeah,
he started the game that the Mets won, Game 5 in the NLCS. So yeah. Was this? No, this was the bullpen game, wasn't it? I think
Game 4 was the bullpen game.
Yeah, now I'm getting confused.
No, Game 5 was the bullpen game because then they brought. Yeah. By the way, you know who's feeling really good about this fan interaction right here?
Jim Norton.
No. Prick.
Sorry.
No, Steve Bartman. Because Bartman's got to be thinking, all I did was try to catch the fly ball. I didn't attack anybody.
Yeah, and Cam Egan, who
okay. I didn't know she was going to say that.
No, it's all right. It's fine. She is a White Sox fan, and she had a rough year, so that's all right.
And that they made the comparison to Bartman. I was like, dude, Bartman did nothing of this sort. You know,
no, he just instinctively reacted and then realized, I shouldn't have done that. These guys are like, come on, give me that fucking ball. What are you doing? You know, so
you're in my neighborhood. You don't belong in my neighborhood. I'm defending the wall. Who is he? In A Few Good Men? You want me on that wall? You need me on that wall?
Yeah. And I was on multiple text threads after this happened. And one of them was with a friend that I grew up with. And we grew up with so many guys like these guys. And yes, they were Yankee fans. So I'm like, I feel like I know these guys, you know? And and then this is the game where Volpe hits the Little League Grand Slam. you know. So there were some great memes, great Sopranos memes about some of the Italian American heroes in this game, like Volpe and these two fucking mooks right here. Yeah. So yes, exactly. So, but you know, I mean, this was just sort of a crazy moment, and you know, it's like, oh, it probably would have been fitting had the Dodgers then gone on to win this game, sweeping the Yankees. But honestly, I think I wanted a humiliating sweep of the Yankees because of how much I dislike them. But I don't think any of us could have ever been prepared for what we got in Game 5 of the World Series. I don't think that even the hateriest with the most haterade, the biggest Yankee hater, could have expected Game 5 of the World Series. What do you think, Weiss?
Oh, it was a Mets fan's dream come true.
Yeah, it's if the Mets couldn't be there, you kind of want, you know, the second best is kind of this, right?
Yes, the second best is a humiliating Yankees loss. to have them hoisted by their own arrogance. You know, and the simplest play that they screwed up, Rizzo and Cole, you know, not being able to figure out a roller to first base, that sums up the season. They depended on Judge and Soto to hit them out of any problem. And but you have to play defense. You have to play smart. You have to hustle. And that's not part of the Yankee game. And it came back, you know, karma is karma. I enjoyed it.
Even their base running against the Guardians, how bad was that inning where they both got thrown out rounding, you know, from second to third?
Right.
That's a managerial problem, right?
Yes.
That's
right.
Yes, it is.
That's coaching and managerial, that your team doesn't cover first, doesn't know how to run the bases, doesn't know how to. I mean, and Gleyber Torres is a perfect example of why David Stearns is a better general manager.
But you need to keep in mind that, like a good Gleyber, Torres is there. I don't know if you knew
that's
that.
a good, very important. Ring the bell. Ring the bell.
Well, that's I actually have one of those. I have. I'm probably saving it for the other show, but I do have a Gleyber Torres, John Sterling, like a good Gleyber Torres is there. I do have one, which maybe I'll get to. But instead of just dancing around it, I mean, shouldn't we just watch some highlights from the fifth inning of Game 5 of the World Series?
Yeah, and by the way, the fact that these runs are. The fact that Yankee fans and Cole are like, well, they're unearned runs. Listen, once Aaron Judge dropped that ball, okay, great. Now batten down the hatches and get out of the inning.
Well, let's go through it, Brody.
Yeah, here we go.
Hernandez with the first base hit of the ball game for the Dodgers.
All right,
and that snaps back to the middle part of yesterday's game, and it's
Cole had a no-hitter through 4.
With a heating up Judge who
he'll
settles on
catch
this
it.
ball, but then drops it.
Oh, wait.
Can Hernandez get to the bag before the throw? He does.
And this
Hats
is what
off
I
to Keith
referenced. Yes, this is what I referenced. It was in their scoring. Make them field the ball. Never slow down. Always keep running. Odds are it's going to pay off. And Aaron Judge had made no errors regular season or postseason, and fortunately for him, he didn't get a chance to make any more errors after this. But this would be a very costly error in a string of errors. So that one actually gets counted as an error.
On a routine play, Aaron Judge just flubs it in center field, and the Dodgers catch a huge break right there.
He must have been watching the runner.
Throws and a ground ball left side. Volpe will go to third, and the third, and another break for LA.
So again, it's another error, and that's the scouting. Is they're going to do things like that. And look, there were times in the past where the Mets would try to make a play at third where the safe play was in the series against the Dodgers, actually. So there was a little bit of a flashback there. But so now you have the bases loaded, which what could possibly go wrong here?
There's going to be a tough play, but one the Yankees should make, and the bases are loaded. Ground ball right side. Rizzo. Nobody at first.
And I would say that that's the most unforgivable of all of them.
Agreed. I love that he pointed.
He pointed like, "Hey, go cover first."
The play's at first.
Judge should have made that catch in center field, but you can, you know what? Yeah, look, it happens sometimes. Ask Luis Castillo. Sometimes the ball comes right at you and you think you've got, it happens. And, you figure, but yeah, I mean, this is and some people want to blame Hamels, Garrett Cole. We could blame Cole Hamels.
Natalie Cole made the play.
And that
King Cole. There's a lot of Coles out there. I love the Coles.
I put Cole in your Kamala Harris puts Cole in your stockings.
Exactly. There's not going to be any stockings this Christmas.
We love Cole, clean Cole.
So we'll watch it again.
Ground ball right side. Rizzo.
He points.
Point the first.
So Rizzo so lazily fields that. Now, he should assume that Garrett Cole would be there, but both of them need to be hustling in that moment,
I think that's much more on Cole. I mean, I think
yes, no, it's more on him considering that we during the October month of baseball, we did in fact see Diaz not cover first a couple of times. So yes, we got to see things like that. But so a run scores here because of this play that wasn't made. And you're starting to think oh, wow, this is really going well for the Dodgers. Now, I think this is ruled a hit, but everyone would say that this is also an error. In fact, some would say it's two errors because two guys made a mistake on this play. All right, so one run.
But it's two outs, Christian. It's two outs. They're going to get out of it. It's two outs.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I think it should have been 4 errors just because of how terrible it was.
Leading directly to a Dodger run in the 5th. Up at the worst time.
Here's Freddie Freeman.
In the World Series. Led this game.
What's he going to do?
A run is crossed. Freddie Freeman on 1-2. Into center field, a base hit. 2 more runs will score. The Dodgers take advantage of the bad defense from New York, and this game has changed in the blink of an eye. Oscar Hernandez.
Teoscar Hernandez.
Judge on the run. Dead sprint now to the track, and it's over his head. That's in to score. Freddie Freeman for the plate, and this game has been turned upside down. The Yankees crack the door open with the poor defense, and the Dodgers kick it down.
So I asked this question of a number of Met fan friends, and I'll ask you guys, and some of you may have been on receiving end of these texts. I think there's no disputing at this point that Freddie Freeman is more hated in the Bronx than he ever was in Queens because of this series. And I know they didn't like him. But this is oh, no. This is too much. Would anyone disagree with that assessment?
No. And it's a great point.
He might not want to go above 125th Street anytime soon.
No, it's true.
Well, that's always the case with most people. So I will say, and there's been a lot of criticism here in the local media, that after the error and then the Cole mishap, and it's 5-3 runners on second and third or first and third, whatever it was, that nobody went out to the mound to give him a breather.
Yes. They said that during the broadcast. I think Joe Davis, I think Smoltz said that. Yeah. They needed to give him a breather. And look, so it's tied, and then the Dodgers will eventually take the lead. But the thing that I thought was oh, this is going to get even more ugly, is that Garrett Cole comes back out for 2 more innings. And honestly, he's great in those 2 innings. And I think that's the rare moment where Aaron Boone's there's no better option for me right now than this guy going back out there and throwing more pitches than he threw all year. And look, he's a big part of the fact that there were errors in that inning, but for the most part, he did pitch very well in a game that was a must win that they ultimately did not win. But I mean, this is everything that you want as somebody who hates the Yankees, right, Weiss?
Yes. I mean, it was perfect. They didn't hit, and they made stupid mistakes. I loved it.
Yeah, they gave away. I mean, I think that's the real beauty and joy.
It away, right?
They had the 5-run lead, and I'm not I'm not a big fan of in-game betting and the odds, but I did see after the game that at that moment when the when the Yankees were up 5-0, the Yankees had a 96% chance of winning the game. Going into the bottom of the ninth, when Freddie Freeman hits the grand slam, they had an 88% chance of winning. So these are two games that, by all metrics, they should have won. They should have won game one. They should have won game 5. And we would probably not only be having a game 6 tonight, but also a game 7 tomorrow night, had that happened. But you just don't ask for anything more than that when you hate the Yankees. So Chris Tuttle wants to know, where's the Japanese fella I've heard so much about? Hate taking over Scotland. These are okay. I see what you're saying. But so Shohei Ohtani had an injury earlier in the World Series, and he stayed in the lineup, and you could tell he was feeling it. But he was just there to DH. So. Obviously, I don't. My wife has a lot of family who huge Dodger fans, so they were very excited, and they were very kind after the Dodgers beat the Mets because they felt like they had really run them through the ringer. I mean, you think of all the base runners that the Mets left on base, and they were chipping away, and they just couldn't necessarily get the big hits except for in a couple of games. And then the Yankees have the one game that they won here, but it just didn't feel the same. Like this was just like sort of rudimentary. So
as
I
Keith
think
Hernandez says, bad fundies.
Keith does hate bad fundies. These are the worst fundies that I've seen.
There's no fun in these fundies.
That's true. There is there is no fundies. And Chris, it's all good. I think I misread what you were saying, and it was going to lead to a point that I ended up not making. But so yeah, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge were in all of the ads for this World Series, and neither one really made a positive impact. And Judge did hit a home run in Game 4, but he is not going to be remembered for that, is he?
Too late and not enough.
Well, didn't they film a documentary about the Dodgers and the Yankees World Series?
Yeah, No. There is going to be a documentary about this. I'm glad you mentioned that. I had forgotten that. I remember.
Yeah, who's going to watch that now besides Dodger fans? Like, it was a terrible World Series.
Mets fans.
No, I'll tell you.
Right.
I'll tell you which part I'll fast forward to and make sure that I watch.
For the fifth inning fundies.
What we just watched. Yeah. I would happily watch that again and again, and of course again. I got no problem with that. So, what are your thoughts, sort of, in all of this, Mr. Connor? We get this. And sorry, this was because I referenced it earlier. I will share a Sopranos meme that I saw. This is referring to, we were talking about the Mooks in the stand. And, he ripped the ball from Mookie's glove is what he did. He was a brave Italian-American Yankee fan. And in this house, Austin Capricorno is a hero. End of story. There was another one about Volpe.
Humor.
But yeah, so there were some very proud Italian American heroes in there. I was looking for something else, and I was like, oh yeah, here's this. But I did want to get Mr. Connor's sort of final thoughts as we look to close the book on all of this.
Like I often do, I feel like Morgan Freeman at the end of Shawshank, when he's going towards the Pacific with hope.
Love that scene, man.
And right, and that's what we're feeling now is, and hope is dangerous. We know this as Mets fans, but it also is important. And this season was so just fun. Like, again, I hit my 50th year this year, and yet somehow this team, I can't say they made me feel young because I just feel so damn old, but it gave me like a real joy in watching the games, catching up with the games, and seeing what they could do, and Lindor entering the pantheon of great Mets.
Yes.
And I know Polar Bear got his moment, but I think Lindor got something even deeper, right? Lindor is now that guy we look at the way we looked at David Wright, Piazza, Gary Carter, maybe even back in the day.
You got to do it when the lights are on, man.
Yeah. And he was the pulse of the team. And Ohtani even said something about him that was really nice about there was a great picture of them at the bases together. And he said I like him. He's always smiling, and the other players feed off that. And it's true. I mean, he brought his everything to this whole season and really kind of kept them on his back, even when times were a little funky. So I mean, now they got, was it, Brody, $100 million to play with about in the offseason?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of million, 101, 102 comes off the payroll. And if Manaea opts out, that's more money coming off the payroll because he's got 1 year left.
We need Manaea though.
Oh, I absolutely. I'm just saying he's probably going to opt out, so that's going to come off the payroll whether they re-sign him or not. Right. And now a lot of the Mets websites are saying, including Sports Illustrated today, said the Mets are the top favorite after the Dodgers to sign Walker Buehler. So,
interesting. Really? I didn't see that.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I'll
send you the article.
Sort of the crown jewel for free agency seems to be Juan Soto, and he's a tremendous hitter.
Yep. No one's going to sign for him.
I would like that $775 million, whatever. I'd like them to spend it somewhere else. The guy plays defense like shit, and I know how good his bat is. I don't need that.
Yeah.
If they get him, I'll talk. It'll be tremendous for the lineup, especially if Pete comes back. And I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, after watching the World Series and watching him walk after balls and not hustle and throw erratically, I'm like, the season the Mets just had with unbelievable defense and fundamentals, and it saved games and, kept them in games, and you appreciate the art of baseball. Maybe as a DH, I don't think he'd sign as a DH.
I don't think so.
And if I'm him, I mean, money's the money, but playing with a short right field fence and no ground to cover in right field, he's set in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah,
so,
I would be surprised if he sends anywhere else. And my buddy Daniel Beck checking in from Japan. Hey guys, how about those Dodgers? Yeah, you can rewind a little bit if you're just jumping in now. We gave so much credit to the Dodgers for being tremendous, and there are, of course, plenty of Yankee errors, but you have to be good to be able to take advantage of them, including like hustling all the way to third, like all that stuff we saw. And Daniel's the one who made me realize that you can bring in sealed plastic bottles and bring in your own food as long as it's a cleared bag at Dodger Stadium. So that has revolutionized the way that I approach the stadium with some of the worst concessions that I've ever been to. So thank you, Daniel. Congratulations on your Dodgers. They were clearly the best team in the playoffs, top to bottom. And one of you was trying to say something. I don't know if it was
that was me. Yeah, I was just one last thing is I mean I would miss Alonso, but the truth is, like, one thing over the course of history of Mets is the power hitters we've gone after, paid a lot for, and didn't get much out of. I would love to see them go after some of these guys who've got more than one tool in their belt, and that's really what served them well in the playoffs, is seeing that, and again, to go back to Lindor, I mean, he's much more than just a bat. And I think, that they made some real smart pickups, and Vientos, how exciting that guy is. So hopefully it was not a blip. Hopefully this is what the heart's going to look like for him for a while. So next year, 2025, feeling good.
And speaking of the heart, Daniel points out that the pastrami dip from the hat is way better than any Dodger dog. And that's a fact check. Any Angelino will agree. Maybe the next time we go to a game, we'll take a little extra time and we'll go down to Langer's and get some Langer sandwiches to go and enjoy them there at Chavez Ravine. But and look, for me, I think that Pete Alonso earned himself a huge paycheck, and that paycheck will come from Steve Cohen and the Dodgers. And I need that because that's kind of all I was able to get my daughter to care about, from taking my kids to a Mets game in June where they beat up on the Astros 7-2. And there were a lot of home runs and there were fireworks with the apple jumping up. And I'm like, great. If Pete Alonso ends up on another team, it's going to be really hard. So I need that. Okay. I need that for my kids to care about it.
Look, I'd like to get Willie Adames if he'll move over from shortstop, but you're talking about Steve Cohen. So to say you can't get Pete Alonso and everybody else you want, that you can do whatever you want. He's a 14 billionaire. So, and as far as Pete, not, he only does one thing. Ohtani does less than one thing, and he's still the best player in baseball. So if Pete can hit 40 and knock in 100, that's his role, right? Every team needs a tight end and wide receivers and different positions. Give me a superstar in addition to Pete and a great pitching staff, and bring up Drew Gilbert or Mauricio or Acuna.
Yep.
I would love a team of young homegrown players that wins, right? Steals bases, plays great defense. So I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head who else is out there besides Pete and Soto as far as who they can sign. But I have faith in David Stearns. If they can get Pete at the right price, they're going to get Pete. And that's not an issue money-wise. They're not going to not sign Soto because they signed Pete.
Yeah, signing Pete. Yeah, the previous ownership, you can't have $200-300 million players. I believe is what Wilpon said. Let me add, especially if Daniel is still in the chat and hasn't backed up yet. The question that I would pose to all of you is: Ohtani has this tremendous year because he's unable to pitch. I think you're going to do what he wants, and you give him this contract because he can do both. But if it's my investment, I don't want him to ever pitch again. I just want him to DH. I don't want to play in the outfield. I want him to just go in there and hit, because look what he did, Yep. And but I don't know if anybody feels differently. And Daniel Beck is right. Blake Snell is available. But since Daniel, you're there, do you want Ohtani to pitch? I don't think he should. But if he does, I understand why he would, because obviously you have this guy who can do so much. But what do you guys think? Does anybody feel like Ohtani shouldn't pitch? Does anybody feel like he won't pitch?
I think he should pitch, and I think Yamamoto is a reason why he will pitch, because they're not going to Senga these guys. They're going to go on a 6-day rest, and they need more starting pitchers to pull that off. And so I think Ohtani pitches because maybe he hits only 48 home runs, but he wins 14 games. And if Buehler leaves and Kershaw's done, I think he's back in the rotation. Now, I think if he gets a sore shoulder, they're going to shut him down for 3 months, so he doesn't, nothing happens. But I think he's a luxury that they can't afford right now. I think they're going to have a problem with pitching. And I think he absolutely pitches, and he should, I think, because that's what makes him even more special and more of a draw as the greatest two-way player of all time. So, and I think he wants to be known as that.
Yeah. So Daniel Beck, I do, at least for now. Dodgers had only 3 starters in the World Series. Yeah. And I'm shocked that it really was just a little speed bump for one game of the Yankee offense. I was surprised about that. Kershaw said he's back, which some would say, Daniel, that was why they were able to do so well in the playoffs, was no Kershaw. But I know how you take that. You take that personally. I do think that if Kershaw had measured up against the Mets, he would have pitched 8 innings with like 1 hit. So I'm not. I know when I've seen him be good, and that's usually it. Chris Tuttle asking, baseball sounds crazy. Why do you want him to stop doing something he can do? Because he does 2 things, and the other thing he's so good at, you don't want to do anything that jeopardizes that. But I understand what Daniel's saying is that you have him, you need him, you should let him pitch. But Weiss, Connor, what do you guys think? Eric, you're on mute, Eric.
Sorry, the Baja men were out. I mean, I think, whatever he wants is in some ways going to be irrelevant, because I think, people are going to be really scared to lose that power. They're going to be very nervous that he goes out there to pitch. And, they didn't really, I didn't get a sense Dodgers were like shedding many tears over losing his pitching arm. I think wherever he winds up, he first and foremost is a hitter. Now, the idea that he is also a very good pitcher, but his numbers as a pitcher aren't necessarily so amazing that it's like I have to. It'd be great, but I don't know how much longer he'll be pitching, considering like whatever his injury was. Obviously, didn't slow down his power during the season, but they basically shut him down as a pitcher for the entire season, right? So I think a lot of clubs are going to proceed with caution with him, and I think the Dodgers have already sort of shown their hand of like what their priority is with him and his dog, of course, Decoy.
Well, yeah,
who,
of course.
The greatest dog in baseball right now.
Obviously. What do you think, Weiss?
I don't think he should pitch. You just won the World Series without him pitching. Why screw with a formula that's successful? Also, let's say he does pitch and he gets hurt before June. Now you've lost him both ways, hitting and pitching.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I mean, that's sort of what I'm thinking when it comes to, perhaps not,
but he did get injured running the bases. I mean, he dislocated his shoulder. I looked up, they said he had like I don't know what the word was, like a amoxicillin of his arm, whatever it was. And it said 6 to 8 weeks normal recovery time. So he could have been out 6 to 8 weeks from running the friggin' bases. So you're like, well, he can't pitch because he might get hurt. He could get hurt. He get hit by a pitch and get knocked out. He'd get his wrist broken with a pitch. So maybe you shouldn't have him bat. Like if he's wants to pitch, he's going to pitch. And if he's healthy, he's going to do that, because being the greatest hitter is one thing. Being the greatest player of all time is another thing. And I think he's going to want to do that. And I think the Dodgers aren't going to tell him no. And I guarantee that in the fine print of his contract, it says Ohtani want to pitch, Ohtani pitch. It says it in his contract.
Yeah, I would think in English. In broken English.
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. Well, loosely translate. Google Translate's a little off.
He had his translator write up the contract, and you
want to bet?
He had DraftKings
he
had DraftKings open on his phone while he was doing it. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think spring training is about 150 days away, which probably means we're about 180 days away from our preseason preview, which is always fun to do. And I felt like the Mets' success combined with the way the World Series went, that this was why this year it made sense. Last year, Texas beating the Diamondbacks in the World Series did not necessitate us doing one of these, but I wanted to do that because of just the tremendous interest in the World Series. And we will end on a fun clip in a moment, but I wanted to give everybody a chance to promote all of their wares. David Brody, where can you be found?
Find me on social media at David Brody. That's Brody for the person who thought I sounded like Jim Norton, not an IE. And you can find me on the Brooklyn Boys podcast, wherever you get your podcast. It is a humorous, obnoxious Brooklynese version of Larry David in a nutshell. So if you enjoy that, you'll enjoy the Brooklyn Boys.
Well, and that's how you know he's not Jim Norton, because he calls it a podcast, not a podcast. And Eric Connor, where can you be found?
You can find me Count Eric Connor, EricConner, over at Insta and X. And a friendly reminder, you got to vote.
Mm-hmm. Unless you don't vote for who I want, then don't vote.
Then don't vote. And then go off and leave the country, please.
Right. As always, I vote Quimby. I will vote for Mayor Quimby until the day I die. And I'm sorry, I love this in the chat. Borat Ohtani, Kazakhstan Dodgers are the best.
Very nice.
My wife, look, you see something in the chat, it's well worth it.
You know what? If the Dodgers had green thong night, I think that'd be a great promotion. The green bodysuit thing.
Mr. Weiss, do you want to be found? Do you want people to interact with you, or do you think that they should just look for you in like 180 days on the Bladtcast?
I'd like to be left alone, but
okay.
For the most part, you could find me at D Weiss Comedy on X and on Insta.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Christian DMZ. Chris Tuttle enjoys Brody on the Geekscape podcast, but I noticed that he doesn't enjoy either Eric or myself, but that's all right. Brody.
Capitalization.
Borat Ohtani. Thanks for shout out. Great success.
Very nice.
Borat Ohtani. I will put you up before Hack Ride if you are routinely in the comments. I love Borat Ohtani. I will watch it. I will welcome his comments all day.
What if he wants to pitch?
That's fine. He's absolutely welcome to.
Okay.
And I am at Twitter, Instagram at Christian DMZ. Please subscribe to Bladtcast, Bladtcast. In the near future on the Bladtcast feed, you will get the complete unedited version of our review of Venom: The Last Dance. I might have tightened things up a little bit for the Geekscape audio version. For the boys on the screen who were there with me might understand me doing that. But for the Bladtcast audience, everything goes. And our buddy Adam Hughesy, the H-Man Hughes, was on with us. And boy, did he have some thoughts. You gents are talking about Election Day. This will be the first place where I promote the Election Night Special, the bonus episode. So we're doing our regular Who Are These broadcasters on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. But at 10 p.m. Pacific, and yes, I know that's 1 a.m. Eastern, we'll be doing an Election Night Special. And again, not to get too bogged down in the politics, regardless of what the vote count is, I know we will have an acceptance speech from Donald Trump to react to. It doesn't matter what the votes say. He will be accepting either way. So I'm excited about getting to play that back. And I'm going to be joined by the Aussie guy, Dean, who does a show called The United States of Australia. Because of the time difference, he's the only one I know who will be up. No, there'll be some dabbler adjacent people. So you can check that out late night, election night, 10 p.m. Pacific. Yes, 1 a.m. Eastern, or anytime on the Who Are These Podcast YouTube channel. As always, at Christian DMZ, more Bladtcast to come in the weeks ahead. In honor of our pal Will Sterling, one of the founding members of the Bladtcast, I want to wish a happy Joy to the World Day. November 1st is the first day where Will Sterling says every year, now that Halloween's over, you are welcome to enjoy Christmas music if you so choose. You don't need to inflict it upon anyone else. But I did notice that the Christmas channels have gone live on Sirius XM today. So Merry Christmas, everybody. And the biggest Christmas present of all for people who hate the Yankees will be how we end. I believe this is going to be the end of John Sterling calling Yankee games, because he already retired once. And he came back because I guess he thought that he was going to get to call a World Series, and that's not necessarily the way it went. So we will end the show right here with this.
Count 1 and 2.
This is the end of Game 5.
Ball game over. World Series over.
Well, we'll get there.
Count 1 and 2.
Sorry.
His breaking ball's a knuckle curve. It was 78. So he throws hard enough that when you get a pitch at 78, you may be in front. Now here's the 1-2 to Verdugo. Breaking ball cut on him as strike 3. Game over. World Series over.
I never
Dodgers
get tired
win.
of that.
Los Angeles is the new champion, and they're going nuts on the field. I don't blame them. You know, in baseball, you get down to spring training on February 15th or so, February 20th, and you play 30 games in preseason, and then 162 in the regular season, and then all the playoffs. So when you see them jump around like this, boy, there's reason for it. They deserve it. They erased a 5-0 lead tonight. The Yankees helped. And the Dodgers win the ball game by the score
Thank you,
of
Yankees.
7-6.
And Daniel Beck pointing out, poetic, that Alex Verdugo is the last out.
And they are jumping around,
former
celebrating
Dodger
as they
who
should. They earned it.
felt like they would be an easy team
Well,
to beat.
tonight's Yankees game
this is why
has
he
been brought to you by Casamigos Tequila and the family of Casamigos Tequila.
So yeah, I wanted to get to the Casamigos. I wanted to get to the Casamigos tequila, and yeah, Casamigos tequila for the win, as it were. And so yeah, Alex Verdugo said that the 2020 championship wasn't legit. A lot of people say that, by the way, but look, everybody had the same chance, and it seemed like everybody made it to the playoffs that year, except the Mets. So obviously it wasn't necessarily that easy. So yeah, but he said that, and sour grapes at the time, since he was traded for Mookie Betts. Yeah. So exactly. So
hey, the Dodgers won an 81 during a strike year. So was that the people said that wasn't legit either?
Yeah. No, exactly. And you know what? The 94 strike probably cost us Blue Jays Expos World Series, which I know doesn't sound great, but I would have just think of who would have performed the national anthems in those areas. How many times Geddy Lee would have been out there? Young Alanis Morissette, fresh off the set from.
Well, would they even have done the national anthem? They both teams are Canadian. They could just play the Canadian national anthem.
Well, they have to. Somebody has to. Anne Murray has to sing the Canadian. Oh, Canada! Come on.
Oh, how about South Park singing "Blame Canada"? That would have been fine.
That would have been great. Anyway, congratulations to Daniel. And look, it is funny. This is what we'll end on. I can't play it because of copyright reasons. Although, boy, I sure played a lot of baseball clips today. We'll see what happens with the YouTube strike. I love that after a Dodgers win, and you can hear it in that Freddie Freeman walk-off grand slam, they play Randy Newman's I Love LA, which if you read the lyrics to that song, it is completely ironic about making fun of Los Angeles. It is not a song about actually loving LA.
Short people, right.
That's
Short
the
people
most
is more of a love letter to LA.
It's the Born in the USA version for LA.
100%.
Yeah.
It's the most LA thing that their song is I Love LA, which is not about actually loving LA. But, it's hard to not jump in with that. We love it. Yeah. And he says today was a good day, Daniel Beck, because, they did have the parade today. And I did know people going. But anyway, we've had more false endings in this show than an M. Night Shyamalan movie. So we will bid you all adieu until next season, but also until next episode of the Bladtcast. We'll see you next time on the Bladtcast.